I think we'll see something very similar in both places in Venezuela, as we did in Venezuela, everywhere in the world, in the US, but in Europe, all over. And we've already seen when the financial crisis hit in 2008, and then we had the sovereign debt crisis in 2013, 14, the way a lot of people survived was by using their silver. Because again, in any form, now look, this is the primary way for me that I buy gold and silver. But the reality is, gold and silver in any form is monetary at its base. This is a sterling silver chopstick that I got at a yard sale, God knows how many years ago. But it is marked sterling, therefore it is 92.5% pure. So any way that you can accumulate all of this, that's the way you need to do it. This is the most efficient and recognizable way, but in any form, it's still monetary at its base. You know, I have no idea, because it really is all about confidence. I mean, they're going to keep the market propped up because as soon as it implodes, well, you know, they have too much riding on this market at these heights, like all of the retirement plans, as well as Wall Street. So, you know, it's really hard to say, but what will topple it is the loss of confidence. I cannot stress that enough. This is a con game, and all cons require confidence. So frankly, they can keep this mess going as long as people think that they know what they're doing. And by they, I mean central bankers, governments, and that's the problem for them right now with the most latest scandals at the IMF, at the World Bank, all over the place, quite honestly. It chips away at that confidence. And once confidence is lost, you are not easily getting it back. So if I look at other stock markets, you know, part of what is also happening in here, because we've been taught that there are no other choices besides, you know, Wall Street's stock market, but there are other choices. These are your choices out of the system. So, you know, but if people don't think they have a choice and they see this inflation, they run to the stock market thinking that it's going to protect them. But in reality, when ultimately it does get reset, and I'm not talking about everything being just hunky-dory, you know, going into this, because it can get worse and worse and worse. As Venezuela was entering its hyperinflation, the stock markets were the best in the world between 2012 and 2018. But then when they lopped off those zeros, then what happened to the stock market? It basically imploded, went down like 99%, made another attempt to rise, but then they just lopped off more zeros. Well, actually, I think, yeah, in August. So, you know, what happened to the little rise in the stock market? Boom. So you're not going to be able to protect your wealth in the stock market, even if you think that there's no place else to go. You want to protect your wealth, you want to protect your purchasing power, you got to do physical gold and silver. We're close, but we have not. We're in melt up, and I do think that we have entered the very beginning stages of hyperinflation, but we probably have a little ways to go. Well, as long as it's a fixed rate, then I'm okay. And you can refinance because, you know, if it's a fixed rate debt and then you have the gold to offset that debt so that you can pay it off in a heartbeat. But yeah, if you can get a better rate, then you probably should, and you're thinking about refinancing, you should probably refinance now, because we've seen that rates have been spiking. Whether or not that will continue, I can't tell you at this point. But you know, we're just in such an interesting period of time where you have some central banks raising rates like Mexico and a number in South America. You have other into inflation. You have others that are lowering rates into inflation like Turkey. It's all a big experiment. That's what it is. But one thing that we absolutely know, so the central bankers may be experimenting, but when we get to the point where we are right now, we are at the end of this fiat money's life cycle, period. We are. So we have to transition into a new system. And it seems like the CBDCs are having some trouble. So, stay tuned. But as far as refinancing your home to get a better rate, yes, that would be a very good idea. And you probably want to do that sooner than later in case rates continue to go up. So when you're looking at dollars, if you look on the top, it says Federal Reserve notes. A note is a debt instrument. Therefore, it is a contract. And therefore, it is only as good as the Federal Reserve on the other side of the contract. And we can see that, the Federal Reserve is struggling right now, as are, frankly, all global central banks, because we're shifting and we're transitioning. So what I mean by counterparty, it's who's on the other side of that financial contract that would then put me at risk. Whereas with gold, I hold it and I own it outright. And that's why there's no counterparty risk, because I don't have to worry about anybody else paying me back. I have this. It's mine. And that's why the central bank, or the Bank for International Settlements, rather, says this is the only financial instrument with no counterparty risk, because everything else is a contract. And by nature, when you have a contract, there are at least two people or two parties that are engaged in that contract. And there's your counterparty risk. A rising gold price is an indication of a failing currency. Well, when they do the reset, and let's assume for a moment that they do not do a confiscation, though I really think they will, but let's assume that they don't, you are going to pay taxes on that distribution. So for me, the choice that I made, you got to do what you're comfortable with, because a lot of people go and they set it up like this because they know you go, I don't want to pay those taxes, but you will be paying those taxes. The amounts, you know what they're going to be right now. Do you know what they're going to be in the future? Because taxes will be going up. So you're going to see the nominal value of gold and silver going up, and you're going to have a higher tax rate. When would you rather pay those taxes? For me, what I did was I took the distribution and I paid my taxes, and I don't have to worry about it. I have a retirement plan, but it's invisible because here it is.